platform that this webinar is streaming live on YouTube. So if you are not comfortable with this, please keep your camera off. So welcome to this important event organized by the Bellona Environmental Transparency Center. Today we are presenting our latest report, the Northen Sea Route, Russia's industrial and political expansion, its environmental costs and Arctic shipping risks. My name is Yury Sergeev and I am honored to moderate today's webinar. Let me start by saying that we are discussing here matters well beyond the Arctic. Climate change is opening the Northern Sea Route, a shipping corridor stretching along Russia's 6,000 kilometers Arctic coast, turning it into a contested industrial frontier. The melting ice that makes navigation easier simultaneously threatens the region's biodiversity, climate stability, and the livelihoods of Arctic inhabitants. In 2024 alone, oil and gas shipments accounted for over 84% of cargo moving through the Northern Sea Route, underscoring the extent to which fossil fuel extraction underpins Russia's Arctic strategy. While international sanctions have slowed some development, they haven't stopped it. Russia continues to gear up its industrial and geopolitical ambitions in the Arctic. A growing lack of transparency has created significant challenges for monitoring and assessing the region. Infrastructure and preparation for emergencies such as oil spills or vessel accidents remain alarmingly inadequate. Rescue and response capabilities are limited, with ships potentially stranded for weeks in the ice. Adding to that are the so-called shadow fleet of aging, poorly regulated tankers operating outside normal oversight, vessels that often sail without transponders, evade insurance, and pose major environmental hazards. Beyond catastrophic accidents, more subtle but serious risks are present too: noise pollution, disrupting marine mammals, invasive species introduced through ballast water, and emissions of black carbon and methane that accelerate Arctic warming. Despite the IMO's 2024 ban on heavy fuel oil in the Arctic, Russia has refused to comply, keeping one of the dirtiest fuels in its fleet's use. To help us navigate these complex issues, I am pleased to introduce you our expert panel, co-authors of the report. Ksenia Vakhrusheva, Project Manager and Arctic Project Advisor, will open with an overview of the report's findings and its main conclusions. Всеволод Levchenko, Arctic Project Advisor, will examine the origin of cargo transported by the Northern Sea Route. And Ekaterina Blokova, Arctic Project Advisor, will dive into the search and rescue infrastructure along the Northern Sea Route. Before we continue, I just would like to remind that for nearly 4 decades, Bellona has stood for informed, independent environmental advocacy. Founded in 1986, today we work across Oslo, Brussels, Berlin, and Vilnius, bringing science-based analysis and transparency to complex environmental challenges, including those in the Russian Arctic. Last but not least, after the presentation are done, we will open the session to your questions. Thank you for joining us in this vital discussion, and let us begin by welcoming Ksenia Vakhrusheva to present her opening remarks. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I hope that you can hear me well. I'm just starting to share my presentation in a few seconds. Okay, going to the start. And full screen. No. So hello again. Thank you for introducing us, Yury. I'm glad to present you Bellona's new report, The Northern Sea Route, Russia's industrial and political expansion, its environmental costs, and Arctic shipping risks. This report summarizes our current knowledge of the state of the Northern Sea Route and analyzes the prospects for its use in international transit shipping. Bellona watches the developments in the Russian Arctic for more than 30 years. Being established in Norway, as you said, in 1986, Bellona, among its own Norwegian environmental issues, turned its eyes to Russia because of the transborder pollution going from Russia to Norway, from Norilsk Nickel in Murmansk region on the border between Russia and Norway, and to nuclear contamination after the nuclear test at Novaya Zemlya archipelago. You can see the photo of the Bellona's ship Genius going to Novaya Zemlya in 1990s. Since then, Bellona was trying to help Russia to reduce radiation risks from nuclear legacy in the Arctic and continued monitoring pollution from industrial facilities. After the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Bellona closed its offices, which were in Murmansk and St. Petersburg, closed its activities in Russia completely, but continued to monitor environmental, climate, and nuclear risks originated from Russia, because Russia is there and it's a highly risky environment there, which can influence global climate and environment and politics. So why we care specifically about the Northern Sea Route? I would summarize it in 2 points equally important at the current moment. First, the Northern Sea Route is not just another shipping lane. It's a comprehensive complex which includes Russian ambitions to extract and export resources from the Arctic region inland and offshore, and dominate roughly half of the Arctic region up to the Northern Pole. When Russian Arctic land, especially in the eastern part, is not densely populated and the population drastically decreases, Russia is trying to promote it and promote the development of the Northern Sea Route as a national strategic priority, kind of national idea. But implementation of this national priority goes using destructive tools, absolute economic priority over environment, dictatorship way of management, repressions against civil society and the indigenous population. So with the economic political influence in case of successful Arctic development by Russia, these malign practices might be normalized and expanded. On the picture here, you can see how Russian media presents the Arctic development to the public, with the Russian flag on the northern pole, on the North Pole, meaning and dreaming about full dominance in the Arctic. The second reason, which is the long-term and equally important, is the fragile Arctic ecosystems and environment, which are more vulnerable to pollution and human activities than regions more to the equator. And I will talk more on that in the next slides. So what we see in our report and how we define the Northern Sea Route in different ways. On the right picture, you can see in dark blue the water area which is legally constitutes the Northern Sea Route, a wide water area from Novaya Zemlya to the Bering Strait. It is defined as a large water area because due to complicated sea and weather conditions, concrete routes of vessels change voyage by voyage. It depends on the ice conditions, on the weather situation. Ships are advised to take that or this way around different islands and through different straits. On the left map, we draw a map of human activities in the Arctic, showing the Northern Sea Route or Northeast Passage in orange. Is highly connected and dependent on the extractive industry in the Arctic region. Basically, the Northern Sea Route has been developing only because there was a need to ship extracted resources, and this purpose is still a preliminary use of this route for Russia. More on that will be covered in the presentation of my colleague Vsevolod. So in our report, we covered several topics, starting with the climatic and hydrological features of the Northern Sea Route waters. Try to define the legal framework, national and international, and plans for utilizing the Northern Sea Route established by the Russian government, volume and the origin of cargo transported on the Northern Sea Route, types and number of vessels operating there, emergency and rescue infrastructure along the route, environmental costs and risks associated with this, with the use of the Northen Sea Route, and the impact of international economic sanctions on the usage of the Northen Sea Route. Of course, it's not everything which there should be said about this complex topic, but we had to limit ourselves with a certain scope and leaving potential for further expansion of the topic. Here on the slide, yeah, the next slide shows the narratives around the future of the Northern Sea Route. And first, there is a Russian narrative that is promoted by Russian media sources and government officials. They try to make people in Russia and outside Russia to believe this narrative that there is a global warming, which means that there is less ice in the Arctic Ocean. It will be even less ice in the future, which means that there will be easier all year round navigation along the Northern Sea Route. And then they also say that more ships on the Northern Sea Route doesn't influence the climate and environment so much, so there is no climate and environmental impact from shipping. This year, they even refer to some Russian research report that was saying that. And then, of course, it gives you a cheaper, quicker, and environmentally friendly global trade as alternative to the Suez Canal to ship goods from east to west. In fact, of course, this means not only like the good for everyone else, for the global market, but in fact, it means for Russia that it will have additional profit and geopolitical dominance in the Arctic region. That's what they want. In reality, what we see, how can we beat this Russian narrative? Indeed, there is a global warming, and more of that, there is an environmental degradation also in the Arctic region, which means that less ice is probably will be in the Arctic Ocean. But that doesn't mean that it will be easier navigation, because global warming together with will bring more harsh weather conditions and more fast-changing ice and weather conditions, which actually will make navigation in the Arctic waters not easier, but sometimes even tougher. In case Russia can sell indeed this route and expand its use, then there will be more ships on the Northern Sea Route, which means that there will be increased emissions and environmental risk from shipping and also from industrial activities on land, which goes again and fuel the global warming and environmental degradation even more. And there will be increased military presence and Russian political influence in the Arctic, which then leads to instability in the whole Arctic region and also probably a global trade. Then, with the political part, it's more or less clear, I think. So then we go a little bit deeper into the climate and environmental concerns. Here, what is our primarily concern for now is a risk of major oil spill in the Russian Arctic waters. And there are several reasons for that. There are objective reasons, like that there is no effective and known to the world technologies which can quickly gather oil in the Arctic waters. The environment in the Arctic is harsher, and it doesn't contribute to fast degradation of oil and oil products naturally. But then there are additional several subjective factors which depend only because of the Russian activities. Firstly, that there is no HFO ban. Russia didn't join the international agreement on that, and is not going to establish its own similar standards. So the heavy fuel oil on ships is still in use, and it's carried back and forth, and which keeps this risk of spill high. And then there is growing number of shadow fleet vessels which transport oil also through the Northen Sea Route. In 2024, there were 7 of them, 7 voyages of these vessels. In 2025, probably there will be more by the end of the year. And Russia gives permits to vessels which with no ice class. Like if you see the whole number of permits, it's more than 500 vessels which with no ice class, which are permitted to sail along the Northern Sea Route in certain areas with when there is no ice, or with icebreaker escort with light ice conditions. But mostly that's service vessels and smaller vessels operating in areas which are close to rivers and ports. But still, there are more than 20 cargo vessels which carry cargo along the whole route, also without ice class. And sometimes we saw it last year, and we see this year that these rules, even though they are permitted to navigate without icebreaker escort only in no ice conditions, then they don't book the icebreaker, they go, the situation changes, they continue going, then they meet ice formations, wait for icebreaker. So that's a huge room for accidents. And then there is no work on mistakes and developing other strategies from the Northern Sea Route administration. And the next year it will repeat itself. Then there is also what we see, the secrecy about accidents by authorities, and my colleague Ekaterina will talk more about this. But this is what Russia is doing for the whole of its recent history. That if there is something happens, then it's usually media or people who notice it and first report to media. Authorities keep silent unless it's not possible to be silent about it. We saw it with the major oil spill in Norilsk in 2020. Another thing, which is not directly connected with the risk of oil spill, but is there another concern considering the intensification of the use of the Northern Sea Route, is marine environment disturbance, because there are there are a few very narrow straits which are significant for mammals migration and bird areas. The bird areas you can see on the map there in white circles. And in case there will be a huge amount of traffic, then their routes and their places of habitat will be extremely damaged and disturbed. So that should be also taken into consideration. And there is not a lot of areas where Russia established national parks or national or territories, natural territories, which with certain rules of no disturbance to birds or other marine environmental species or other marine species. And then all shipping impact that is valid for all shipping. That's invasive species, transportation, underwater noise, emissions, including soot, especially because HFO is not banned, radiation contamination risk from either legacy sites or nuclear icebreakers, it's still there. Another important thing which we analyzed in the report is how the international economic sanctions influenced the development of the Northern Sea Route and the will of its intensified use established in the Russian strategic plans. So here you can see two graphs. On the left, the graph shows annual cargo volume on the Northern Sea Route in 1,000 tons. In dark orange, it's actual volume from 2020 to 2024, and light orange is planned and target volumes. You see that in 2023 and 2024, the actual volume hasn't changed much from the previous years compared to the pre-war years. A little bit rising, but more or less the same. And that the target for 2024 is was way up. So it means, if we see why, that's because of the international sanctions against two major industrial sites for gas extraction and oil extraction. That's Arctic LNG2 facility, Vostok oil facility, and other facilities like Murmansk LNG and a couple of others, which were not, which were planned to be opened and in operation in 2023 and then in 2024 to raise capacity by a maximum. Then it didn't happen because there was no buyers for LNG from the Arctic LNG2 project, and there was difficulties with the construction of Vostok oil facilities, also because of the sanctions. But at the same time, the sanctions have exceptions. For example, Yamal LNG, which was in operation since 2017, is still in full capacity and delivers LNG to Europe and to South Korea and to China. Another sanctions that hit Russian industry is the shipbuilding industry, and that meant that there is lack of ice-class vessels to navigate along the Northern Sea Route, and this what Russian authorities is constantly talking about. They tried to establish shipbuilding industry inside Russia, but they lack technology and additional financial resources because most of it goes to the war. So now this problem hasn't been fully solved, which also contributes to limited intensification and not that big rise of number of vessels going along the Northern Sea Route. And another thing is the development of the shadow fleet ships, shadow fleet, consisting of mainly oil tankers and since last year LNG tankers. These sanctions don't really affect the plans for the usage of the Northern Sea Route. They affect on the information transparency. At least before the 2022, we were more or less. We know that we can go to. We have an official information about what kind of vessels are present on the Northern Sea Route. Do they have permits? Where they go? What the their voyages. But now this official information can't be trusted because there were spotted shadow fleet vessels without ice transporters. They were not mentioned in the official list of vessels permitted on the Northern Sea Route. And then now this information should be considered as incomplete, the full intransparency of this. The second graph shows the number of international transit via the Northern Sea Route. Besides the export purposes, Russia is actively promotes the Northern Sea Route as a valid international transit from east to west as an alternative to Suez Canal or the Cape of Africa. Which was, and we can see here on the statistics that indeed before the 2022, there were some numbers of full international transit in light green. Full international transit means that Russian ports were not included in the transit. It was from foreign port to another foreign port through the Northern Sea Route from the whole Arctic coast of Russia. The dark blue is the international transit, but which involves Russian ports, meaning that a vessel from the foreign port goes to Russian port via the Northern Sea Route, the legally defined area of the Northern Sea Route, or backwards. So in 2022, after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, international transit was almost none, both fully international and including Russian ports. But then, since 2023 and in 2024, and now it will continue this trend will continue in 2025, the international transit, including Russian ports, is increasing. Only because China is shipping goods to Russia, to ports of Murmansk, St. Petersburg, and Arkhangelsk, and backwards. Full international transit wasn't there for 3 war years, but in 2025, they plan, actually in 2 days, it should be the first fully international transit from China to Europe with a cargo vessel, which was announced by a Singaporean company, but with Chinese investment control. Bellona has sent an open letter urging about this to European ports, which this vessel plans to visit. That's Rotterdam, Hamburg, and Gdansk. Some authorities answered that they share our concern, but we haven't seen their official response yet, and I hope that it will go. It will go, and it will come. To finalize, what are the main findings of the report that we would like to promote as messages to public and to foreign officials? So there is a need to minimize shipping in the Arctic because of these 2 reasons that I mentioned in the beginning. The environmental climate impact very high, and in the situation of Russia, it's becoming even more risky because of lack of adequate response and no priority to protect climate and environment. The narrative that the Northern Sea Route is quicker, cheaper, and environmentally friendly is an illusion. Russia needed to build national security in the Arctic, ensure continued export income, and established itself as a player in global trade, using malign instruments which can be normalized and influence other countries and the whole region. In fact, it can be quicker, but if everything goes smoothly. In the presentation of Ekaterina, you will see examples when there is accidental need to when the ship is stuck for weeks, and then it doesn't make it quicker. And if you cannot predict it, these happenings, then it's a not reliable route for international trade. Cheaper, that's also not that certain, because you need to use the icebreaker escort. Right now, it's considered very cheap compared to the investments that should be made to build new nuclear icebreakers. If and when Russia made it more or less on the market level, the price for icebreaker escort, then I doubt that it will be still cheaper than using the longer route and environmentally friendly. Yeah, that's my last slide, so I will be on time. And environmentally friendly, of course, it's not. Shipping has its negative environmental consequences. They're widely known, and there is no exception on the Northen Sea Route and on the vessels using the Northen Sea Route. So there is also a need to strict environmental, climate, and safety standards for shipping and mining in the Arctic. And I don't think that we need to wait for Russia to get more environmentally friendly and democratic authorities to make these rules. Other countries should start making it themselves and implement it where they can. And the message to the EU and its allies that they shouldn't support the intensification of the shipping via the Northern Sea Route, sending signals to China and other Eastern countries that it's not a good idea to ship goods from them to Europe through the Northern Sea Route. Thank you. You can have, if you have questions, please write them in the chat, and I will answer them in the end when both my colleagues will present their parts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ksenia, for such informative presentation and this overview of the report. And I will pass the floor to Vsevolod Levchenko, who will examine the origin of cargo transported by the Northern Sea Route. Please, Vsevolod, floor is yours.
1 second, please. One more second. Okay.
And we're ready.
All right, we are ready. So, hello, do you hear me? I hope yes. So, my name is Vsevolod, and I will tell more about the connection between Northern Sea route, cargo flow along it, and industrial projects in the Russian Arctic. So, here is the history of cargo flow along the Northern Sea Route. As you can see, it began to increase rapidly since 2014, and it increased more than 6 times in 5 years. So this big growth was due mainly to big industrial projects in Russian Arctic. One of them is Novy Port, oil and gas depository run by Gazprom. It started working in 2014 and went to current capacities in 2017. And the second one is Yamal LNG by Novatek. It started working in 2017 and went to current capacities in 2019. So after that, the cargo flow growth wasn't so big, so rapid, and the structure of cargo flow along the Northern Sea Route was also quite the same. So this is the structure. So total, there was a cargo flow about 37.9 million tons that year. Most of them 21 million tons is production of Yamal LNG. Second manufacturer is Novoportovskaya oil and gas field. Mostly they produced oil, crude oil. And the third one manufacturer is Norilsk Nickel, mainly its facilities in the city of Norilsk, 1.6 million tons. So all of these projects are located in Russian part of Arctic. Here it is. And basically 84% of all the cargo flow along the Northern Sea Route is the export from this Arctic zone. What about other 16%? Well, some of them are also export from other places in Russia, for example, oil and gas from ports of Ust-Luga and Primorsk located near St. Petersburg. There is also very small amount of so-called Northern delivery. It's when they deliver the necessary goods to isolated cities, towns, and other settlements along the Arctic shore. And there, as Ksenia mentioned, also were some import from China. It was mainly some cars, some car parts, some goods for household, equipment for office, for even shoes and clothes, or things like that. So there are mainly two main documents that are about the development of Northern Sea Route. One of them is the federal projects of development of Northern Sea Route, and the second one is plan of development of Northern Sea Route. So according to these documents, according to this plan, the planned cargo flow along the Northern Sea Route in 2024 should be 80 or even 90 million tons. So it's like at least 2 times bigger than they had now. But they didn't achieve that goal. So let's take a look why. Here's a list of projects mentioned in these documents. These documents were implemented into the last editions were implemented in 2022, some months after the war started. So the 3 projects on the top were already operated. Well, so the plan was to increase the cargo flow by launching the new so-called mega projects in Russian Arctic. Most of them are located in Taman Peninsula or in Yamal Peninsula next to it. So the most ambitious one is Vostok Oil by Rosneft. It should provide 30 million tons of cargo flow this 2024 year, and its maximum capacity even more, 100 million tons, which is almost 3 times bigger than all the cargo flow in 2024. But due to sanctions, this project faced delay. So because they couldn't have some equipment for this project for construction works, and also some short time later, the operator of this project, Rosneft is subdivision of Rosneft, also faced sanctions. So basically all of these projects that should be launched after 2022, after the war, they faced similar problems. So Arctic LNG 1 is completely frozen. Baimsky mining and processing plant in Chukotka and Opsligas chemical complex by Novatek have some unclear status. Well, so why we are concerned about that? Ksenia told about some environmental risks due to transportation of this production along the Northern Sea Route, but there are a whole bunch of risks, a lot of them. But there are also some risks due to operating these particular projects. So I give you a few examples. For example, Serdosayska coal deposit, they didn't manage to launch it. Its maximum capacity should be 12 million tons a year. It has a huge coal reserves. So what's bad with that? It's open pit coal mining, probably the worst option for extracting coal out of soil. So this type of extraction causes poisoning of soil, of water, air pollution, landscape degradation, degradation of ecosystems, loss of animal habitats. And one thing is also, which is also important in Arctic conditions, is that open pits, they produce coal dust, which acts similar to black carbon, so it reduces the reflectivity of snow and ice. In this picture, there are 3 examples of open pits in Kuzbas region. It's #1 region in Russia by producing coal. There are only 3 pictures, but actually there are way more projects like that in Kuzbas. So and now they plan to have something like that in Russian Arctic, and they already built a port for that, so they scheduled to start that soon. Other example, probably most of you heard of it, is Norilsk Nickel. Its facilities in city is Norilsk. Well, now they have so-called sulfur program 2. Its goal to cut SO2, sulfur dioxide emissions. Before that, they have the first program, but they didn't achieve any goals, but spent a lot of money on that. So, but finally, this year, or last year to 24, they finally achieved some goals. They have some results. They managed to cut emissions of SO2 from 1.8 million tons to 1.3 million tons in 1 year. So that's quite inspiring. But if we compare these emissions to other sources of emissions, we will see, for example, Canada overall emissions of SO2 in 2024 was twice less. So they plan to cut these SO2 emissions in Norilsk to 0.3 billion tons, which is maybe good, but for example, also overall Norway's SO2 emissions are still much less. But things that they didn't plan yet, that's really a fact. Around Norilsk Nickel, there is the biggest industrial wasteland in all the Arctic. So there are about 24,000 square kilometers of forests destroyed by acid rains, by water pollution, air pollution, and the plans. There are no plans of restoration of it. So this is it. But let's get back to our table. So yeah, there was one new project the Russian government managed to start after the war. It's Arctic LNG 2. It also had some problems. It was on hold for 1 year, but since this September it is in operation again. They sell LNG to China. So, but before that, it also faced some problems due to sanctions, because they had contracts with 2 South Korean shipyards for LNG tankers for that project. After war began, these contracts were cancelled. So what did we do? They used shadow fleet vessels for Arctic LNG 2. There was 6 shipments by 6 vessels that year. Some of them are quite old, which is quite average problem for using shadow fleet. So some of them changed their names. Most of them changed their flags. For example, Everest Energy vessel, which is now called Arctic Metagas, changed its flag for 3 or maybe even 4 times since that time. So, as we see from the presentation of Ksenia and from this particular presentation, environmental safety is not a priority in the Arctic development for the current Russian administration, and it's not priority in every link of this. And if we go deeper, it even began in some Arctic legislation. We give some analysis of it in this report. So the other conclusion is as we can see now, the main purpose of the Northen Sea Route is basically just to give Russia money, so it isn't used for anything else, just to export natural resources. And also we see that Russia still relies on foreign equipment and foreign ships because it doesn't have any the needed technologies, and also it needs some sales markets. This, by the way, was some problem with Arctic and LNG2, that they couldn't find markets. That's why it was on hold for 1 year and 1 month. And so we see the stricter sanctions are, the less production they produce in Arctic zone, and the less cargo flow along the Northern Sea Route is. So maybe also some stricter environmental legislation in countries which for some reason still buy this production can also have some impact. So this is it. Thank you. Download and read our report, please.
Thank you, Vsevolod. Thank you for such detailed overview of the situation. And now, last but not least, Ekaterina Blokova, that will dive into the search and rescue infrastructure along the Northern Sea Route. I will remind that all save your questions. After Ekaterina will finish her presentation, we will be open to answer all the questions that you will have. And we're ready.
Yes, thank you. Well, my name is Ekaterina Blokova, and I'm going to talk about the part of the report that is focused on emergency and rescue infrastructure along the Northern Sea Route and services that take part in accident response. And here is the plan of this section. First, I will speak about the main emergency services and infrastructure. After that, I will briefly describe trends in international cooperation in this area. And finally, we will look at a practical example of how different accidents and incidents handled so that it is clear how the system actually works. This part of the report was based on official documents, statements of government officials, and media publications. This topic is very concerning because the Arctic environment creates high risks for shipping. And even during summer navigation period, when the Northern Sea Route is almost free of ice, there are still zones of ice formations in some areas. Just recently, the news reported an incident with LNG tanker Arctic Metagas, which loaded LNG at the project Arctic LNG2 and headed to Asian ports by the Northern Sea Route. The ship is not ice class certified, and it had to stop and turn back at the ice edge in the East Siberian Sea. It was actually following the icebreaker Sibir, but still encountered dense ice flows and was stuck for more than 1 week. And this happened during the so-called summer window when the navigation should be the easiest. And the similar situation happened with another oil tanker already in September. The next point is lack of transparency, and here I would like to mention the Rosatom's report. Rosatom is the state corporation managing the Northern Sea Route, and it reported in its 2022 annual review that there had been no accidents on the route for 2 years. But this information is difficult to verify because there are no independent monitoring, no open data, no public oversight. And it is interesting to mention that in Rosatom's next report, which is the most recent one available, the review of 2023, doesn't include this kind of accident statistics at all. In fact, there are reasons to believe that Russia may not be fully transparent about incidents because it actively promotes the Northen Sea Route as a solid alternative to the route via the Suez Canal. And here is another example. After the Arctic metagas incidents I told about 1 minute ago, the vessel's position was completely removed from the public records of the Northen Sea Route administration. This raises questions about transparency again. In the Arctic region, many different agencies are involved in preventing and responding to emergencies, to different types of emergencies. For example, Ministry of Transport, Rosatomflot, Ministry of Emergency Situations or MCS or Emercom, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental, and others. In our report, we focused on two key players, Emercom or MCS and the Ministry of Transport. These two agencies provide the emergency and rescue infrastructure along the Northern Sea Route, and you can see them on the map. The red squares show the Marine Rescue Service centers of the Ministry of Transport. The dark blue squares are existing MCS Emercom centers. Light blue squares show planned Emercom centers, and the orange line shows the Northern Sea Route itself. Even with a quick look, you can see that there are not enough centers to fully cover the route, especially in the eastern part. When it comes to maritime rescue operations, Emercom is responsible for air rescue mainly by helicopters, and on this map you can see the helicopter coverage areas from all the services that can be involved in rescue operations along the Northern Sea Route. And here it becomes very clear that there are large gaps between these zones. This is clear lack of emergency and rescue infrastructure along the Northern Sea Route, especially in the east, and this is recognized by everyone, including Russian officials. For example, Governor of the Murmansk region, Andrei Chibis, last year admitted that today still there is an urgent need to develop infrastructure and create conditions for rapid response in case of emergencies, especially in the eastern Arctic. And this year, Aysen Nikolaev, the head of Yakutia, said that rescue infrastructure is almost completely absent. He also gave a very clear example about the small town Tiksi on the coast of the Laptev Sea. He said that when Tiksi faced a severe snowstorm with heavy wind earlier this year, there was no communication with Tiksi at all, not for a few hours, but for 3 entire days. Another example comes from Emercom's own report. They admit that there are not enough rescue resources, which is illustrated by the need to call in help from other regions to cope with 6 major emergencies that happened during the last few years. Plans to build additional rescue centers are often mentioned in the media, but they are heavily delayed. Emercom first announced plans to creating 10 centers back in 2010, with construction supposed to start in 2011 and finished by 2015, but by 2015 only 3 centers had been built in Naryan-Mar, Arkhangelsk and Murmansk, and 1 Arctic search and rescue unit in Dudinka. But all of them have very limited capacity in terms of staff and rescue vessels. Since then, deadlines have been pushed back several times. The shipping building program for new rescue vessels is also facing delays, not only because of funding shortages, but also due to international sanctions affecting shipbuildings and other sectors. In our report, we also review the international agreements that regulate emergency prevention and response in the Arctic. And the main trend we observe is that after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, its participation in many international organizations and initiatives has decreased. The agreements remain in force, but without real cooperation, their effectiveness is limited. For example, the regular joint exercises with Norway and the United States have been cancelled. In May 2022, Norway decided to cancel the June exercises that had been held almost every year for more than 20 years. At the same time, search and rescue cooperation was not affected. Communication between Norway and Murmansk still works. And in conclusion, I want to point out that in recent years there have been several incidents along the Northern Sea Route, and they allow us to see how the rescue services actually respond in real situations. Some cases involved ships running aground or getting stuck in the ice, and in some of them help took several weeks to arrive. For example, the dredger Nordic Giant ran aground near Tiribirka, and the rescue operation started only 41 days later. Or another example, the tanker Amalit, which you can see on the photo, in 2024 it was carrying 4,000 tons of oil products when fishing nets got stuck in its propeller. And the ship had to wait 12 days for help in Chukotka, and at this moment the weather was very stormy and temperatures were as low as -32 degrees Celsius. They were waiting for assistance from the ice-class rescue vessel Spravedlivy, but it couldn't come to help as it was already busy helping to another vessels. There are much more such cases which we describe in detail in our report. Although these incidents were not major, the response was far from quick, and this raises serious concerns about whether the system could respond effectively to a larger accident. Thank you very much for attention. This is it.
Thank you, Ekaterina. I would like to thank all authors of the report for such detailed and informative presentation. And now we are moving to the question section. And we got a couple of questions in advance from the participants, and I will start with some of them. So the first question we got was from Emanuela from Ost-Antarctica, and she asked how many ports are already operational along the Northern Sea Route, and are there any priorities established for the construction of ports and logistic infrastructures? So who would like to answer this question?
I will answer this question. For the ports, it's better to show the map. So forgive me, I will share my screen again. So you can see the ports here on this map. So if we talk about the legally defined Northern Sea Route, that's Sabeta, the port where the Yamal LNG operates mostly. Dixon, Dudinka is a bit further along the river, but still in the Arctic waters. Hatanga is also a bit deeper in the river. Tiksi on the coast. Pevek. And then the rest here is already not included in the official definition of the Northern Sea Route. Not all of them are big ports. Basically, they're really small. In terms of the projects that are ongoing, on Taimyr region here in the Kara Sea, there will be there is a construction of Port Severny, the port for Vostok oil project to transport oil by Rosneft. So this is the one which has a priority because it directly links to export of Russian oil, and this major project that Vsevolod was talking about. Another project I mentioned, that's Arkhangelsk, but Arkhangelsk now is not in the defined legally defined Northern Sea Route, but it's still in the Arctic zone and highly connected to the Arctic shipping. The authorities plan to widen it because they plan to have more voyages from Arkhangelsk and to Arkhangelsk to China. This is a new development started in 2023. And they're actively looking for investments for it, trying to attract Chinese investments. For now, as I see, not that successfully. Thank you.
And we have another question, I guess it's also for you. We doesn't touch this topic in this report, but I guess we have some knowledge about this question, so I would like you to briefly answer this question. So it's from Michael Mataloni from Inspiration Business Developers, and his question is, what position does the report take in the frame of the rising interest for nuclear propulsion in the shipping industry?
So yes, the report, the current report, wasn't evaluating any potential for different fuel types. So we don't have the list of potential fuels and their analysis of which one is better to use in the Arctic or elsewhere. This is still needs to be properly researched. But what is important to say that yes, we see the developments in different countries that nuclear reactors are seen as a one of potential use for propulsion of big vessels. And there are already nuclear icebreakers that Russia uses. But what is important is that before introducing this technology on the operation, the country should have a clear, established and working system for prevention of potential accidents, mitigating it, and the service which can then clear out the accidents consequences, which in this case means that the country should have a clear system of how to prevent and then work with the radiation contamination and radiation incidents, which theoretically can happen on nuclear vessels, and not only theoretically but practically. Russia has a history of using nuclear propulsion and nuclear reactors on ships and submarines. And there were accidents. There were quite many accidents involved nuclear submarines. And not all of them were not handled in a proper way. And we see that Russia still doesn't have the system, facilities and technology to handle the accident of these types. For example, for the submarine Kursk, which sank in the Arctic waters, in order to take it up, Russia didn't have its own technology. There were Norwegian and Dutch ships, rescue and search ships, who helped in this. And there are still highly contaminated sank nuclear submarines, which Russia doesn't handle with right now. And we see that there is no willingness and no financial sources, no technological sources that Russia can use on its own to handle these kind of risks. Bellona has nuclear experts and monitored this topic for a long time. If you go to the Bellona's website, in the report section, you will see different reports on, including the one on the nuclear legacy, where this question was described.
From El Kalimans from Clean Arctic Alliance, our big friends. And he's wondering what can be done to eliminate operational pollution such as wastewater from scrubbers, sewage, and bilges.
Well, for scrubbers, it's better not to use them, especially in the Arctic waters, and in favor of using the less polluted fuel. So not to use HA4 and then add a scrubber, especially with the open loop circle, which discharges the wastewater into the ocean. But to use the lighter versions of diesel, marine diesel, to lower emissions and to avoid water contamination. Recently, Bellona joined the open letter, which was promoting ban for discharges from scrubbers. And hulls, Bellona also has a project called Clean Hull Initiative, which promotes regulated standards for regular hull coating and cleaning. So this should be a proactive action, standardized and regulated, so that the hull of the ship is properly coated with certain biocides and regularly cleaned manually, so that the transportation of invasive species is minimized.
Okay, thank you, Ksenia, for this answer. And I, like being a moderator, will use my power to ask Vsevolod. So the so-called shadow fleet has become increasingly active in transporting oil through Arctic waters. But what specific environmental and safety risk does this fleet pose, and how can the international community address these challenges despite the limited transparency?
Oh, well, so what are the risks? So mainly it's often they use some very old, not well repaired vessels for that, and also often they don't have any proper insurance. So then if some accident or incident happens, then it's not clear who will handle it. So for example, there was a case this spring. There was a Russian citizen in Norway who established a fake insurance company in Norway to make insurance for Russian shadow fleet vessels. So the other risks, for this example of Arctic LNG2, often these ships can switch off their trafficking systems, so you don't know where is the particular ship, where is it located. So this is what exactly happened with Arctic LNG2. There was big investigation by Bloomberg with satellite pictures, satellite photos, and they find out which particular ships were carrying LNG from Arctic LNG2 to other places. So these are, I guess, the main risks, and if we talk about oil tankers, they can also bunker oil from one ship to another in open sea, which can also cause some pollutions. So these are the main risks, and maybe I would like to add something about nuclear icebreakers. I'm not Arctic expert.
Yeah, please.
There are particular 8 nuclear icebreakers along the Northern Sea Route, plus 1 nuclear container ship. But what's the other problem with using it? Even if there are no accidents, no incidents, they still produce some spent nuclear fuel, they produce nuclear waste, and there's a need for space to store it, because, for example, Side Bay center is full for 80%, so sometimes they carry the nuclear waste and spent nuclear fuel from there to Radon object in Moscow region and to Chelyabinsk region Mayak facility. And the other one problem is decommissioning and utilizing the nuclear ships. So in history, there was only 1 nuclear ship utilized. It took 20 years for that. So now other ship is in process of utilization. Both of them happened and now happening in Murmansk region. And there are 4 more quite, or 4, maybe 2. And there are a few more old icebreakers along the Northern Sea Route that are old, that should be decommissioned soon. And those projects in the Murmansk region, they also had some financial and technological supplies from partners outside of Russia. For example, Rosita vessel to carry nuclear waste was built in Italy. So, but now, after war began, there's no international help. So that basically means that Russia will increase the amount of so-called nuclear legacy, but it now will be not Soviet but Russian. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vsevolod. And I see that we have a question from audience. So Thomas Grove, please ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay, I'm outside and I apologize for any ambient sound, but I was interested in one of the comments that one of the speakers made regarding the fact that the Shadow Fleet doesn't have icebreakers. And from what I understand, I thought that all ships that cross the route needed to have icebreakers kind of escorted throughout. Are there any other, I mean, first of all, am I incorrect in thinking that? And secondly, are there any other kind of, are there any other ways in which the Shadow Fleet protocols differ from other ships that as they transverse the Northern Sea Route? Thank you very much.
So, Ksenia?
I will answer, and Vsevolod can add if I miss something. There is a possibility for the ship to go through the Northern Sea Route without icebreaker escort. But for that, the special permit should be issued by the Northern Sea Route authorities. So, first of all, in order to enter the Northern Sea Route, you are obliged to have to get a permit from the Northern Sea Route administration, and then you specify what kind of vessel it is, what kind of ice class it has, or no ice class, where you want to go, from which point to which point, and then the Northern Sea Route administration decides on which sectors of the Northern Sea Route this concrete ship can operate, and on which conditions. For example, if the vessel is a no ice class vessel, then usually it is permitted for this vessel to go through the Northern Sea Route only without icebreaker escort, only where there is no ice. So it might happen in September when there is no ice along the whole sea route. If there is some ice, then it waits, or orders the icebreaker escort to certain part of the route. If it's like light ice conditions, then it must order the icebreaker escort. If it's medium or high ice conditions, then it cannot go through the Northen Sea Route. These permits usually are published on the website of the Northen Sea Route Administration, and we can see which vessel is permitted to go where and on which conditions this year. But for shadow fleet vessels, these permits are not published. I assume that they still apply for it because the Northen Sea Route Administration knows about this ship and should know. But this is not public information. And then how these rules are stretching out for shadow fleet vessels, that's, I think, decides more or less accidentally. It can happen that, yes, they started to go through the Northern Sea Route with no ice conditions, but then suddenly at a certain point there is an ice formation and it is stuck, the ship is stuck. It should order the icebreaker escort. The closest icebreakers are busy with somewhere else, or they're too far. They should have time to come to this vessel and so on. So without proper monitoring with satellites, we actually cannot track these vessels because they don't transform their position through the internationally recognized system AIS. And this is, of course, not legal, but what we can do.
Any
thank you.
additional?
Maybe not, but if I remember it correct, there was the maximum ice class of shadow fleet vessels which were on Northern Sea Route is Arc 4, is still not enough to operate along all the Northern Sea Route in winter conditions. So it's like they can operate in quite thin ice, about maybe 1 meter, if I remember it correctly. So this is it. So in winter conditions, they also need some icebreakers to operate there. So, and this was the issue with Article NG2, because after the one of some issues, because then the summer navigation closed, there were no shipments from that project.
Okay, thank you. So, but we have some more questions that were sent to us, and it's from Sanata Arslan, Istanbul Bar Association. He mentioned that recently the desire to use China's giant ice-breaking technologies devices for oil and gas extraction activities in the Arctic, coupled with Russia's need for allies stemming from the Ukraine war, and has forced Russia to enter into significant commercial agreements with China. So, and it's interesting, the question is, how would a potential rapprochement between Russia and European Union countries affect China's policy regarding the Northern Silk Road? And could China's new maritime route, which it's, as I mentioned, called the Northern Silk Road, also serve as a means of legitimizing its activities on potential oil and gas resources in the Arctic high seas? Or could these activities be the beginning of attempts to militarize the region? I guess it's a question for Ksenia, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, thank you. So what we observe now, and what China is not hiding, is that it is extremely interested in the Arctic resources. And firstly, those that it can already buy, meaning oil. And China is benefiting now from discounted oil from Russia, also from the Arctic shipments. Chinese interest in other kind of resources in the Arctic is also there, but there is no yet international regulation to mine it in High North Sea, so that's a long shot, I think. And for China, I also think that it wants to be present in the Arctic just in case and to see how the international development about extracting of Arctic resources will go. Of course, it does want to miss this opportunities for itself, if it will see. But that's a long shot. Currently, the Northern Sea Route, I don't think that China is seeing it as a valid route to transfer most of the shipping from east to west to Europe. It's again testing it and want to build the experience in navigating in this region. But this is the opportunity for Western countries and for Europe in particular to have impact on the Chinese decisions about the using Northern Sea Route as transit. Now, when it's just a few, it's not even a plan. It's in plan to start again first shipping through the Northern Sea Route. This is the moment for the European Union and the other European countries to stand to the China that it's not a good idea. And it's not a good idea, especially now. Not only for climate and environmental reasons, but also for political reasons and security reasons. We don't know what can happen with the ship while it goes through the Northern Sea Route. It can be some concerns about not just carrying cargo, but using the ships as a hybrid war of Russia against Western countries. So this is the opportunity, and this is what we stressed in our open letter to Western governments regarding this upcoming transit voyage, which is planned to start at 20th of September from China to Europe.
Thank you for such full answer, and we're almost running out of time, so if there are no other questions from the audience, like I give 3 seconds to raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, and on behalf of Bellona, and I would like to thank you all our speakers and all our guests of our webinar. Thank you for being today together with us. I encourage you to subscribe to our news, to our digest, and to stay informed of all what we are doing. And I hope we will publish next report at some time and you will be first to know about it. So have a nice day, evening or morning, whatever part of the world you are here with us today, and thank you.
Thank you, bye.